People talk about simulation theory in a way that kinda pisses me off. And by people, I mean no one. And by talk about, I mean I made it up in my head. This is mostly me remembering of conspiracy theory discussions we used to have a lot in the internet like 4 or 5 years ago. I'm not huge into conspiracy theories. The extent of my conspiratorial beliefs begin at the landing strips of Logan International and end at the structural integrity of Building 7. I never felt too strongly about a conspiracy in one way or another, with only one exception. It's not even a matter of believing in it or not. It's just so lackluster. It's like these people grabbed some potatoes and instead of hash browns, they made mashed potatoes for breakfast. It's like, I guess that's okay. I don't know why do you have to bring up the Jews into it though. What pisses me off is how, despite how observable this theory is in our daily lives, all people talk about when it comes to simulation theory is some sci-fi stuff, which is understandable considering the amount of sci-fi movies that touch upon it, but people always talk of how there's some higher powers at play, some higher civilization that constructed a computer program simulation for whatever reason, and that simulation is us. And all I can think of is, have you seen pets? Take a dog, for example. They came from wolves, right? We selected this kind of animal and specifically breed it in order to harvest more desirable and eventually cutest traits. We took this animal that was supposed to live a life of meaninglessness, a life of pure chance, of pure food chain shenanigans, at the mercy of no one other than themselves and nature. An animal that was meant to have their little wolf pack and go around wolfing, killing, eating, fucking, whatever wolves do, and then when it's time, they procreate and then they die. Instead, we concocted the abominable fluff balls that we all know and love. We stripped them from nature and put them in the confines of our own homes. We turned the food chain into nothing but a distant thought. And we threw random chance out of the window as we took care of everything for them and we provided for all of their needs. The lack of meaning, the animalistic lack of meaning of that animal species life was replaced with a cute name, an identity, and a purpose that we, the owners, created ourselves. The life of a pet is a simulation. Now, of course, that comes with stipulations. If you have a farm and you let your dog run loose, maybe even hunt, does that make it not a simulation or less of a simulation? What if the reason for domestication, the reason for giving that animal and that species a specific purpose is a valid one, like it often is? Does that deny the notion that their lives are a simulation? And what about cats? We didn't genetically breed them as much as we did dogs, as far as I know, and they certainly live by their own rules, coming and going whenever they want, despite being our pets. So do they live in a simulation or somewhere between it and reality? In fact, what would even be reality to begin with? Now, I in no way saying domestication is a bad thing. I love dogs, and if it wasn't for cat domestication, we would probably have taken much longer to have an agricultural revolution. It just irks me that the observable examples of a real-world simulation are ignored in favor of the idea that there's some aliens out there simulating our lives in a computer or something. The more philosophical side of the idea is not as popular as the sci-fi and more literal aspects of it. If you think of simulation as an organized narrative, amplified in a genetic, scientific, conceptual, and sociological level, then in a lot of ways, we do live in a simulation. You could say that that's what that Kaczynski was alluding to in his manifesto and in his life. He strived for a life away from industrial society and closer to nature. You could absolutely say that scrolling on a bright screen while laying in bed, only to then get up, go to a cubicle where you scroll on a larger screen for 8 hours a day, 5 days a week, it's not how a human being was meant to live. To go deeper, we would have to ask ourselves, how much is the reality we constructed for ourselves as a species inherently natural, and how much of it it's a ungodly creation or a believable misconception? But if you really got the point of this video, You're shipping your pets to the Amazon right now. I know I am.